That's always kind of the hardest part of when we start the live chat is there's a buffering point at the beginning, and you have to kind of sit here and smile like this until the camera starts, and you feel like a total idiot. But you got to have that good beginning because the rest of the show depends on that. So good morning, congratulations. You've made it through the week. Another week of fantastic food safety, food quality, amazing products that we all enjoy. But as we all know, food safety, what a thankless job, especially around Christmas. And so with that, Allie and I want to say thank you. We appreciate all that you do and all the wonderful foods that you help put on our tables in this holiday season. So if you are new to the Food Safety Chat, welcome. Pull up a chair. My name is Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group. And every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I get the honor of bringing an amazing food safety expert on to, of course, talk about, yep, you guessed it, all things food safety. So with that, we'll kind of dive in here and say hi and get our introductions, everything out of the way. So Allie, of course, Allie Swanson is a food safety consultant and a very special food safety lead instructor for FSPCA. Allie, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Good morning. How are you?
Good. So as we start off here on the chat, one of the things that we love to start with is let us know where in the world you're at. I am, of course, in Loveland, Colorado, and Tim is at home in Tennessee, which is good for sure. Allie, where are you at today?
I am home in Portland, Maine, and it is 34 degrees.
Nice. So it's a little after 10 for you. So not too bad. Here in Colorado, it's been, crazy warm. You never know. It was the week here before Christmas. It's going to be, what's the latest forecast here? 57 degrees.
That's nice. Very nice.
56. Yeah. So it looks like through Christmas, it's all going to be in the high 40s and the 50s. So can't ask for much better than that. So let us know, everybody else, where you're at here in the chat. And Allie, is your Christmas shopping, are you a late shopper or an early shopper?
Usually a late shopper. This time around, I got everything done in time. It's cooking. That's what's left over to do. Is all the cooking.
I'm an early shopper, and so my wife always hates it because I'm very good at doing gifts. And so I bought like her gifts in I saw something on Costco in September and bought it and hid it away. So it's like I get done way early. Everybody else. Definitely. Morgan, good morning. Visiting parents in North Carolina. Cool. Very nice. So I would imagine here, coming in to this holiday week, things are starting to it's always kind of weird this time of year, especially in food safety. This is the time, Allie, where everybody actually kind of needs to be super careful if you're manufacturing, because plants are everybody's enjoying the holidays, making lots of food, which means manufacturers are making lots of food. So it tends to be one of the riskier times of year if you're a manufacturer of food. So from a food safety standpoint, it's the holidays, but we're also on high alert, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. especially with those items that are holiday related. They're making, they're pushing the numbers, pushing their equipment, pushing production just to get that stuff out on the shelves.
Well, and for a lot of companies that have a January to December fiscal year, this is the last quarter, and they want to get those financials looking nice for next year. And there's always a big push on that side. So thank you, everybody out there, for what you're doing and being hyper vigilant to make sure that food safety is a good one and that no one has a bad Christmas because of food safety. So cool. Thank you. We appreciate that. James in Baltimore. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Hi,
So my coffee's sitting here, Allie, beckoning me. So everybody, please join Allie and I for a drink of your favorite beverage with the mushroom cup. Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, I'm like a Costco-holic. The mushrooms remind me. So I bought there's some dehydrated French mushrooms that like a canister. They're little treasure hunts. So I've got those in there. My wife is not kind of on mushrooms, so they kind of take a long time to eat. So, but I'm gonna have to do something with those mushrooms. Your cup reminded me of that.
Amazing pasta. Mushrooms and pasta is always a good combo.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. So, we have a special dad joke today. This is a good one. I love this. I shouldn't do this, right? Because I'm setting this up for failure if people don't like it. But
Well, it's a dad joke, so that sets it up all by itself.
Well, that's very true. So we're just going to dive right in with the dad joke. Allie, did you hear about the chameleon who couldn't change his color?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, such a sad case. Turns out he had reptile dysfunction.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. I like that one. You can see the commercial on TV. Are you a chameleon? Do you have reptile dysfunction? Contact my office and we'll get you fixed up.
Oh, you just keep going with it. Excellent. Excellent.
So now good morning from Georgia. Good morning to you. That's a good dad joke for sure. Gosh. So this is kind of a fun topic here this week. And really, Allie, this is almost kind of a peek behind the curtain into the life of a consultant of what we're talking about here today, isn't it?
A little bit,
Yeah.
And we have our struggles too. We recognize, everyone's got struggles, even the consultants and experts.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. Morgan, that was a good one this time. Oh, they're good every time. Come on. Come on, Morgan. This time. Oh. Oh man. So one of the things when you consult that we have is you deal with all sizes of companies, and inevitably you'll get calls from people who are starting out, and we recognize that, man, that's a super brave thing to do, is starting a food company. And so let's say that you have a recipe. Your grandmother makes amazing salsa, and you're just like, holy crap, grandma, that's amazing salsa. And she's like, yeah, it's been in our family for generations. My grandmother taught me how to make it. You're just like, can I have the recipe? And you're like, yeah. And so you're making it at home. You're giving it to your friends, and your friends are like, holy crap, that's some really good salsa. You should sell that. And you're like, and then people are like, I should. Glad I missed the dad joke. Oh, that hurts. That makes me sad. That completely throws me off.
It was a good one. You missed a good one.
Oh, you're lost. It was. Email me afterwards. I'll send it to you. But I got to stay on topic here. Got to stay on topic. So you start, Allie, right? So you start, gosh, I should really make this salsa. So you start making batches at home, and you're giving it to friends and kind of getting feedback. You're making bigger batches, really experimenting around with this.
Maybe you even got into the local farmers market, or maybe you sold some at a little craft show. That's usually how it also gets started. Do other people, my friends and family, like it? Do other people like it?
Exactly. And so you're like, gosh, this has got some legs. So you used to go to the farmer's market, you go to a local grocery store chain, and their buyer tasted, and they're like, this is really good salsa. We should try this in our specialty section. And now it kind of gets into that realm of be careful what you wish for, because now you're like, oh crap, what do I do? And that's what we want to kind of talk about today, because here in Colorado State University works a lot with entrepreneurs for food in particular areas, and they'll send calls to me. And the salsa one it's a real story. Somebody came to me on that and said, hey, I'm looking at starting to sell salsa retail. What do I need to do? Okay. And kind of we want to give you a little bit of a taste on that. So part of this is getting into that entrepreneurial mindset, because if you're an entrepreneur, odds are 99.9%, Allie, you're not a food safety guy. Right? You're doing something completely different, right? You work at a used car lot or something else beyond food safety, and most people don't even understand what's needed for food safety, do they? It's just this thing that they expect.
Yes, there's some basics, some what we call common sense of food safety that people practice in their kitchens at home. But does it go beyond that? And as you start talking to them, and that is excellent that you're going to get into the local grocery store, but there's a little bit more to it. And when you start talking to them, you realize their knowledge in food safety is lacking.
Yep. And cash flow. Cash flow is king when you're starting out. So you're buying all these materials to make your salsa. You're starting to scale up. You're just trying to pay the bills. You're not even thinking at that point of hiring anybody. There's a certain point in time where you are too big for your kitchen, and your spouse is mad at you because you make these giant frickin' messes, and you probably have a new deep freeze out there where you've got material that you're storing in the deep freeze for making your salsa and whatever else to try and fill these orders that you're making. And then you realize that, oh, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. I need to expand. And your options on that are pretty limited. And I've seen and worked with companies, they have, especially at local colleges, you'll have kitchens that you can rent. And at night in restaurants, you can rent their kitchen. And Corey's been on the show talking about this as well. Ghost kitchens, that may happen too, where it's like, I'm just going to make this here in my house and put up a website and start taking orders, and I'll pretend like I'm a manufacturer, but I'm really not.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's so many out there. Okay. There's so many people making food, selling food on the internet. And again, there's a misconception there. Just because you're doing it this way doesn't mean you've been doing it right. And there's a lot of rules that you're probably not following. So, for example, if you're crossing state lines with your retail shop, or even wholesaling, you've crossed into FDA territory, different rules now. And that's what I'm finding with some of my clients is they've got a little retail shop, a little bakery, and the next thing you know, they're selling on Amazon, and they want to get into the local chain. And I went, well, what about all this? So it could be a lot.
Definitely. And I mean, if they reach that point in time where things are starting to, they're getting more sales, and they need, there's a point in time too, Allie, where they say, gosh, I need some help. They're not hiring food safety consultants to help. They're hiring people who can physically help, right? Hey, I need help making the salsa. I need help packing the boxes. I need help shipping orders. I need help getting the bills paid. It's, the food safety piece of it, right, is way down the road. They don't even think about that.
Yes, it's not even a thought. And not only that, when it does become a thought, they certainly don't think about how expensive it can be. Right. Yeah. Food safety, it doesn't make money. It spends money. It's your insurance policy. We've said that before,
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, definitely. And generally what will happen on that side is it's outside sources that start letting them understand food safety. So if they've been selling at the local mom and pop boutique grocery store, or to your point, the farmer's market or things like that, and then all of a sudden they say, I'm big enough now where I can approach Kroger, and maybe I can get in some local grocery stores here with Kroger. I'm going to go talk with the buyer. And now all of a sudden reality starts hitting. And now the buyer's like, okay, well, are you certified? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, to your point, have you been registered with the local health department? What? Have you got your manufacturing number from FDA? What? And then the buyer's like, forget it. Until you figure this stuff out, come back later. And now they've got all this information that they don't understand, and they're like, GFGI, GFSI, what's all this? What? And now they start reading through all this information, and all of a sudden they're doing this, right? And they just realize what they stepped in. And that's when we get the call, isn't it?
Yes. And again, it sounds great that you want to be in Kroger. The opposite side also happens. Maybe you're at a trade show and somebody approaches you. We would like to carry your product at our hotel chain, or, airlines or something like this. So that does happen, and then you see the light at the tunnel. You're like, wow, this is going to be so great for business. But then again, when they come with these rules, or I should say requirements, and one of those is certification. What's that, and how do I get started?
Right. And so with that, at this point in time, it's kind of, okay, well, I've made it this far. I'm not going to stop. So they'll call me, right? So they'll get referred through CSU and they'll contact me and say, and the salsa story is real, right? This happened to me with salsa. And they contacted me with this exact story that we're talking about here today. And I started just hitting them with all kinds of questions. It's just like, okay, well, all right, what's the pH? How are you packaging this? What's the container it's in? You do understand that as a canned food, you fall under low acid canned food regulations, and there's just silence on the call, and they're just like, what? And it's like, they're like, no, you don't understand. I went to Kroger and they told me I need to be certified, so I just need to be certified so I can sell. Can't you just send me some documents or whatever? I'm like, no,
it's not that. I wish it was that easy, but it's not that easy.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And then also depending on where they're starting, if they are in their own space versus a rented space or versus their own kitchen, and which license they have, they may say, yes, I have a retail shop and the state inspector comes all the time. Okay, well, is he looking at these documents? Is he looking at this? Is he looking? No, he checks to make sure I have hot water and paper towels, and right? And he makes sure we're clean. And I'm like, well, this is completely different. So again, with this certification, they don't realize there's a lot to it.
Yes. Cortland, good morning, Cortland. Good to see you.
Hi, Cortland, welcome back.
Looks like he can relate to the story. So my friend got sick after eating my salsa.
I hope that's not true. I hope that I'm sorry if that is true. That's awful.
Oh no. Oh my goodness. That's friends like, what? Friends like, what did I do to you? Oh my goodness. And so this is kind of like, I like astronomy, Alex. I was just thinking about this. This is kind of like, you have these different levels that civilizations need to get through to get to the next level. And it's very interesting topics on YouTube when they talk about this. So, can you survive as a species, can you survive these extinction events? So, an asteroid hits the Earth, or there's a bunch of nuclear bombs sitting around everywhere. Are we going to blow ourselves up? If we're going to be a successful civilization for tens of thousands of years, you have to get through these different levels. And I was thinking this morning, food safety is the same, right? So this is kind of, if you're an entrepreneur, this is the first level extinction event for you. Can you make it through the journey, the trial by fire of food safety?
Yeah, okay. I was wondering where you were going with that. Yeah. And it's absolutely true. And it keeps going, right? Although it keeps going. So the GFSI is towards the top.
Yep, definitely. And yeah, so good comment in here that absolutely. And this is like with CSU, right? You have these university extensions, and that's often where that journey will begin. Is they'll reach out to their local academic institution and they'll talk with professors, and okay, great. That'll give you a good idea of where to start. But part of this is, does that professor have real world experience, or are they strictly an academic? Because if they're an academic, they're just going to point you to, read this and read that and read this and read. Yeah, okay, that's good. That'll give you an understanding, but it's not going to help you actually execute against that plan. So kind of what we want to talk about here today around this topic is this is really parallels everything else that we do in food safety, because it's just kind of a microcosm. Really, if you're a larger company and you're developing a brand new product line, this is kind of the same type of thought process that you have to go through. You have to think of yourself as, okay, this is brand new. We don't know anything about this, right? So if you're a dairy company and all of a sudden the marketing people want to start taking shredded cheese and putting it in a package with a produce, like a chopped lettuce type product, now all of a sudden you've just stepped into a completely different area of risk. And it's just like this. It's like starting out as an entrepreneur. You have zero knowledge, and the people you're working with in those areas have no idea. Larry, those are GFSI drones with the drones. Oh my goodness, the drones. So part of this then is that educational piece. And so what we wanted to talk about as a topic here before Christmas is that thought process that we go through as consultants when talking with new entrepreneurs, because it's the same conversation you should be having as a food safety person with anybody who wants to introduce a new product or process or change, even within an existing company, right?
Yes, absolutely. And again, explaining that it is a journey. It's not just like a one and done. Like you said earlier, we can't just write a bunch of documents and hand it over and you're ready. So
Right.
it just doesn't happen like that. And you just have to take your time.
Right. And for me, that's always a giant red flag. As someone who's working with larger food companies and dealing with new suppliers, or on this entrepreneurial side that we're focusing in on here today, is if they contact you and say, and Bob Garfield with SQF before he retired would say this all the time at conferences, is if you want to become SQF certified, it's to make your food better. It's not to put a certificate on the wall. And if you think that's what you're going to get, don't even bother. Go somewhere else. We don't want you certified under our standard. And he's right. And if I would hear that comment, I'd start talking with a company on this, entrepreneur or whatever, and they say, yeah, that's all great. I just need this stupid certificate so I can sell at Kroger. Can you send me stuff? If they say that, I'm like, no, right? No, I don't want to work with you, essentially, right?
Right. And there always is there should be that little pre-interview where you ask questions, from the consultant standpoint, do I want to work with this small business who reached out to me? So I'll ask some questions in the beginning, and part of it, the 4 Ps, what product do you make? So what are we dealing with? Seafood, big difference than some cookies. Salsa, big difference. It's regulated products versus non-regulated products. Do they even know what that means? So some of these probing questions, how many people do you have? What's your process look like? All of these things. Do you even have a plant? Do you have a facility that you're working from? So this will get a general sense of where they're at with food safety and if they're going to be on board. Because then they'll start asking those questions back to you, like, oh, well, joining this, where do I go for this? How do I do this? Then they're interested, they're invested already with some time, which is great. So let's just keep going with that conversation. Some of them are like, I'm not doing all this. I'm going to rethink it. I'll call you back.
And
then they don't.
Right. And then they're gone. Cortland creates his own certificates, which is a joke, and Cortland's right. But that's something you have to be careful about, because there are fraudulent certificates from other parts of the world where people will counterfeit GFSI certificates to pretend that they're certified. So it always goes back to that saying that we have, right, which is trust but verify. So always make sure that those things are correct. So the 4 Ps, and that's a great transition, Allie, because it comes down to that product, plant, people, and your process. And that's exactly where I start too, is the product. Well, tell me what you're making. And here in Colorado is a small local bakery. They're doing awesome. They're doing such a really good job. They're creating gluten-free cakes for a local, well, not a local, a national chain of grocery stores, but they're supplying here locally in the area. And they do an awesome product. And they have built a separate little building behind their house for their bakery to produce their gluten-free cakes and the other yummy things. And the owner, her and her husband approached me and said, hey, here's what we're doing. And I spent a lot of time. Number one, I went to their operation so I could see it. And because I want to see what they're making. And I was impressed, right? And they had a couple people who were coming in early in the morning and helping make the products. And then the husband would load them up in the delivery vehicle and take them. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And they're doing everything right. And she took the attitude of, I don't know anything, educate me. How do I do these things? How do I perfect, right? And I love having her as a client. And I help them anytime that I can. And it's like, and that's super important. So now that I understand, okay, you're producing a baked good, great. Let's take a look at it from this standpoint. And then you start looking at what we normally do in any food safety operation. You're going to say, all right, let's take a look at your hazards. What are your chemical, physical, and microbiological hazards in this product? And you start getting an understanding for it and say, okay, well, you're producing these products. What allergens do you have in this location? It's like, okay, well, this is gluten-free, but we have eggs, for the batter. Okay, well, there we go. There's one. We have flour. Well, no, gluten-free flour. All right, what's in that gluten-free flour? Right, that's mostly starches and things like this. Okay, good. And you go through this list and you start looking at their process. It's okay, good. This is okay, awesome. This is something we can understand. And then you start looking at the different subcomponents of your prerequisites and your preventive controls. So it's one of the ones that I always ask about is, tell me about your suppliers. How do you get your material? You're a small operation. You can't buy truckloads of gluten-free flour. So where do you get it? Oh, I buy from Cisco, US Food, or whatever, which for small companies then presents a very interesting challenge because you're not buying from the manufacturer, you're buying from the distributor. So now you have to have a secondary conversation and say, okay, well, Cisco, you buy these products and then you bring us a few bags of this gluten-free flour. I need food safety information from the manufacturer. And then it can be difficult sometimes, can't it?
Yes, even more difficult when they say they're going to the local Walmart and buying the ingredients, not even
Yeah.
going to a distributor, right? And so usually the conversation, goes into things may change as you grow. Keep that in
Yeah.
mind. And then information, education about recalls. And here's what could happen. I understand you're buying it off the shelf. However, you now have a responsibility as well, in whatever product you're making to make sure it's safe. Here are
Right.
a few things you can do. Check the recall boards, do this, do that, and try to also buy the same brand. Like if this is what you're going to do, stick with the same brands as best you can because each facility has different hazards. And this is where the big manufacturers come into play. You guys know what's good for one doesn't always match what's at the other plant.
Yep, definitely. And comment here on gluten-free, right? So you can have, potential issues with spoilage. Oh, absolutely. And so
Oh, yeah.
with this educational piece, and this is what this is we're spending a lot of our time as consultants investing in them to educate them and say, okay, here's the food safety things you need to look at. Don't forget about the food quality. So how are you making sure that this product is going to be good for your customers? How did you arrive at that shelf life for your product? Right? It's like, well, I don't know.
Usually the shelf life, it's, well, I can get this. Okay, have you done a study? Well, no. Okay. How do you know that your product will last this good? Well, there's no mold on it. It's not always visible depending on your product.
Yep, that's something I always love to teach them as well is okay, entrepreneur, if you buy a bag of shredded cheese, it says consume within 5 days of opening. Why is that? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, that's how long it takes for mold to grow on product. So once you open that bag, you've exposed it to air. If it's nitrogen flushed, right, it's helping to protect it. And now all of a sudden the little spores and everything are in there and it starts to spoil the product. My wife, so I'll kind of roll my eyes, right? This is, the food safety thing is we'll have like a container of milk or whatever. And it's kind of like, it's not a little bad. And then she'll look at the date and she's like, oh, no, that's fine. It still hasn't expired yet. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. That's the date. It's best by date unopened. As soon as you open it, game's over, right? It doesn't count. And then she's like, oh yeah, right. And it's the same. We're educating these entrepreneurs as well in this space. And so I think this question here, Allie, I think they're addressing the risk of the food service, if I'm understanding that correctly. So if not, please follow up with additional questions. But you have continuing guarantees that run through. So make sure and get continuing guarantees from distributors that help to move that liability down the chain to the manufacturer. A lot of times too, they'll have COAs. If the distributor doesn't have a COA or they're not able to get that information for you, well, maybe you shouldn't be buying from them or find it somewhere else, or you may have to do some testing, right? And you may have, for those critical elements, you may have to send out for testing. You don't want to do that, right? But sometimes if it's critical, you may have to, right? And they need to understand that and understand that risk associated with that. Back to the low acid canned food products. Botulism, well, no, that's something, no, forget it. You never want to mess with that. So you need to make sure that your process is correct.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
The testing is also, it's it's pretty much in your future, because that's how you're going to validate your food safety plan. So then that sparks another conversation of your process. One of the P's is, okay, here's, testing is inevitable. We need to make sure that your baking process or whatever you're doing, dehydrating, chips or something,
Yeah.
is effective. So the testing may not have to be every batch, again, depending on what you make, but you will be doing some, and it is part of that validation.
Yeah. And really, I mean, so our audience is really smart. So they've already picked up on what we're doing here, is that when you're starting this process with these entrepreneurial food guides, you're educating them, right? Which is exactly what we do as part of our jobs as food safety professionals. But you start with food safety. You always start with food safety. The other step comes later. So essentially what we're doing here is we're helping them build a food safety plan.
Yeah.
We're doing it verbally. So to your point, right, we're starting with the preventive controls. All right, what allergens do you have? How do you manage your suppliers? So the next question, of course, then is sanitation, right? So, okay, well, great. How are you guys cleaning this stuff? Oh, well. And this is going to be highly dependent on where they're actually making this stuff. So to our earlier points, you can rent kitchens. You can go in and manufacture in those kitchens. So you come in late at night and you bake your goods in their ovens, and then you leave in the morning. Okay, what is that company making in that plant? Are they making other allergens? How do you know that it's clean when you get there? How are you cleaning up when you leave? Because you just can't leave them a gigantic mess. So how are you managing all of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It follows your business. So even if it's not your kitchen, it's your business, which it just reiterates what you're saying. Did you leave it clean? Did they leave it clean? How do you know? Is there documentation to prove this? If somebody gets sick, who's to blame?
Oh,
that's the other tough one with those shared kitchens.
yeah, absolutely. You need to understand, is that kitchen registered with the state? Do they have a health inspector who's going in? Are they certified? Are they able to manufacture? To your point earlier, Allie, if you're doing some good business now and your product is being shipped interstate, so you're selling online and you're selling to somebody in another state. Oh, guess what? You're now under FDA jurisdiction. Is that being managed? Let's say that you're also selling a product that has a combination of ingredients. Let's say that the favorite example is pizza, right? And I think this came up in Congress here recently as well. Is what is pizza? Is it a plant? Is it, and I think they recategorized it again, right, as a vegetable, which is crazy. But a pizza has vegetables and it has meat on it. And so part of the pizza is regulated by USDA, part of the pizza by FDA, and right, all these crazy things. So you have to understand those too. And these goofy little kitchens, who's helping you? How do you do all these things? Teja has an interesting question, Allie. If I'm working in a small company, should I conduct supplier audits or just check COA? Right. So, right. And this gets back to, and that's a good question, Teja, because this gets back to cash flow, right? And what do you know and what do you not know at this point in time? If you're a small entrepreneur, back to our example, and you're making grandma's salsa recipe, you don't know any of this stuff. Are you actually going to go and audit your suppliers? No. I mean, you don't even, how would you even do that? Right.
You don't even know who your suppliers are. If you're getting it from Cisco, they don't see that as a supplier. They say, oh, I get it from there. So to even understand what a supplier audit is. But again, the likelihood, like you said, it's hard enough for the big guys to go audit the suppliers, let alone the smaller guys.
Yes. Oops. So here, right, you have to audit your high-risk suppliers. Oh, okay. So if you're making, in this particular example here, a granola bar, right? That, number one, that's ready to eat.
Yeah.
And granola bars are a favorite topic of small startups, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just roll this stuff out and I'll chop it up into bars, and man, that's awesome. Oh, right. Think of all the stuff in that granola bar, right? You've got oats and sweeteners and fruit bits and nuts and you name it, right? So you have allergens. And to the point of the commenter here, which I'm guessing is Jose, that you have ready to eat items in there that you're completely relying on that supplier. So the chocolate chips in this example, right?
Sure. I want to throw a caveat out there because I interpreted that question a little bit differently. And although I 100% agree with you, according to the CFR, you're absolutely correct. High risk suppliers need to be audited. What I am finding is these companies fall under qualified facilities and whether they know it or not, some do. So therefore they're exempt from subpart G, right, with such a supplier. But, and I also, one company, a small produce company that I work with locally here in Maine, FDA came in and FDA told them, hey, you qualify, here, fill out this paperwork, here's what it means and all that. And I said, that's great. However, you have customers that require you to be BRC certified, and that standard doesn't exempt you from these things. So you will have to put it in place. So, but there is just that little caveat there that these companies are small businesses and are qualified. And it's not that easy to just say, oh, I have to go audit some of these suppliers of mine when you don't even know what GMP stands for. So you have, and even the government understands that a little bit.
Yeah. And now if you're making this, in this particular example, this granola bar, all those different ingredients within that granola bar, which could be considered high risk.
The allergen alone.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like, okay, I'm going to hop on a plane, right? I'm a small entrepreneur. It's me, right? And I'm going to go hop on a plane. To your point, Allie, I don't know what I'm doing. And okay, fine, I'm going to hire you as an expert, Allie, to do this. Now we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars, airfare, hotels, food, the fee to hire you, the report. Now the report comes back and they didn't do a good job. Now what do? I don't know. I'm just a small entrepreneur. It's a hard box. No, it's really, really hard, isn't it?
It is. And so when they do come to you as a consultant or to me and they say, oh, can we have this done by January? No. So like, what's your timeline? And that's another question that, like, where do they understand? Are they checked into reality of how long this could take, depending on what they have in place already? So a pre-assessment or a pre-audit is sometimes necessary to figure out, well, what do you have?
Right. And so a lot of times, that's a good point, Allie, is a lot of times what I will do, you start doing these initial questions. And you start with the food safety plan. So, I need to be certified. No. We'll talk about that later. Let's understand your risk profile. So back to our 4 Ps, right? Product, plant, people, and process is understanding these things. And then if they look like they're headed on the right trajectory and they understand what they're doing, I will send them to someone like you and say, okay, you need to take a course, right? You need to go and you need to be PCQI certified. Who's it? What's it? Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's when their eyes really start opening, isn't it?
Yes, there is actual required training that is attached to this, and just because I have you, can't you do it? In some cases, yes, but in most cases, no. So it's not one easy road. It is a journey that is forever winding.
Yeah. And part of this, and this is always a good rule to remember in life, is in negotiation or any type of interaction between two people who are trying to work on things like this, both sides think that they're the weaker party. And so, for example, if you're buying a house and you're like, oh gosh, Allie has this beautiful house and it's got, these beautiful pictures on the wall and flowers, and this is a beautiful house and I want to buy this house. Hopefully they accept my offer. Well, you're selling the house on your side and you're like, oh geez, gosh, I hope Bryan buys this house and my price isn't too high. I've really got to sell my house because I need to move to Florida, or gosh, both sides always think that they have the weaker position. And within this is part of the evaluation process. This is, as consultants, we're evaluating you as a potential client, because this is our reputation on the line as well too. If you're a bad client who they're like, okay, I don't give a crap, whatever you got to do so that I can sell product, do it. You want me to sign stuff, whatever. Oh, no. Bad client. I'm sorry. I'm not the right person to work with. Perhaps I can refer you to somebody else. But in reality, I'm not going to, if I found a client like that, I'm not going to refer them to you, Allie, because I know they're trouble and they're not in the right mindset. And part of this is why this weird example I had earlier with the extinction events is this is a major extinction event. If you're a food entrepreneur, you have to be able to go through this hurdle and put on the technical hat.
Mhm.
That's just a hard fact of life. If you're a small entrepreneur and you've got this new product idea, you've got to be accounting, finance, marketing, sales, production. You've got to understand everything. And they don't necessarily understand early in the process how important food safety is.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And that's what I'm finding. And some do. Again, like I said, some are, hey, I know this. I know allergens are important. I have a nephew who is allergic, so I always make sure I wash. Those are the ones that you can work with, and you'll get farther. And again, it's time consuming too. So this is not quickie, get certified, get your training. I got my training. Is that it? No.
No.
There's a lot more to that. Writing policies. Do you have a written policy about where you get your ingredients? Do you even have an inventory tracking? That's sometimes, and again, some of these questions, entrepreneurs aren't thinking about lot codes. And what do you mean I have to trace my product? I sell my cookies here, and then that's it. Well, that's not it.
Right. And this is a huge part of being a consultant and helping these small companies is that educational piece is did you know that? And part of what I would teach, and so my local bakery example here is a really good one because I would spend a lot of time working with them, teaching them on, I've talked about this here on the chat before, which is why this is a fun topic, is you have to be able to tell your story. And this applies to everybody. And so what I teach them is, okay, through these people, plant, product, and process, you need to be able to tell your story to your potential customers of why you're successful, right? Okay, well, this is an amazing cake. I love it. Okay, great. That's the first hurdle. You got that. You have their interest. Now the questions are going to get harder. It's like, okay, well, tell me about your process. Tell me about how you control allergens. Tell me about how you make sure that this product earlier doesn't go moldy. All these type of questions. And you need to be able to explain to your new customers why your product is safe. And any buyer who is worth their salt is going to be hitting you with these questions. So you better be ready. And then they start to understand that this whole new world is now opening up to them. And they're just like, oh, what? Right.
Yes.
And some come through it and some don't.
That's true. It can be a make or break moment. Extinction.
Yeah.
So it absolutely, and it's sad when it happens, but at the same time, I'm grateful because then they knew their limits and they're not putting out bad product that could potentially really hurt somebody.
Yeah. And yeah, there's the other ones that are like, nope, I'm going to do it. I'm going to fight through all of this. And that's part of that entrepreneurial spirit that we all really respect. That takes a lot of guts to do that. And this is the point in time for that future CEO of this gluten-free cake empire to understand these things. And a lot of times we see this in bigger food companies is the CEOs don't understand food safety because they've come from other industries. Yeah, you're good at running a company, but you don't know food safety. And if you plant these seeds early in the process, that entrepreneur, the owner of the company, when they get to that point where they are hiring a CEO to run their company, they know what questions to ask. So we're planting those seeds early with these clients to help them.
Yes. And really for a small business, there's so much free education out there since we talk about YouTube. I mean, there's channels like this, right? Bryan's got all kinds of experts on that you can learn, but the universities, the government, there's so much stuff out there. Just consume it as much as you can, because you're going to need most of that information.
Right. And if you're a small startup, you're learning all this stuff and still trying to make product and sell it and everything else. So, man,
you just don't want to learn the hard way, and the hard way would be, you got that phone call. I ate your product. I got sick, or something worse. So this is preventive. We're saving your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're potentially, and to Cortland's on fire here. He's having fun this morning. Is the park doctrine, right? You are responsible as the most senior person in the company. You're responsible for food safety personally. So part of this is educating these budding entrepreneurs that if something does happen, you're on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And you could not only lose your business, they could potentially, depending on how you structure things, they could go after your personal assets as well. So you better have a good accountant to make sure that these things are separated. And you might want to consider hiring, once you get a little bit bigger, you need to build a relationship with a food safety lawyer as well, right? So someone like Sean Stevens or other people like that who can help you navigate these roadblocks as well, because you need to protect yourself and your company as well.
Yes, and consultants, you too, get some insurance.
Yes.
I mean, they'll try to blame you, right? It's all about how you write your contract and all this, but they'll try to blame you and try to take your house if something goes wrong. Well, you told me to do this. Yeah, that has not happened, knock on wood, but just I'm protected. So consultants, you need to protect yourselves. You're a small business too.
Right. And that's a really good point, because that's another way that this relationship goes sideways and why, if someone says, just give me a bunch of documents so that I can sell my products. Yeah, that's a huge red flag. And to your point, Allie, that's something as consultants that we have to worry about as well. Is, well, Allie gave me this documentation. I don't know what it says, but she said this is all good, so go after her.
Yes. And then there's a difference between templates, right? I mean, you can find all kinds of awesome food safety plan templates, and that different from a written SOP. Those are site specific.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a template of how to write an SOP. Go get that and write your own.
Yeah. And this is an educational process. And so it's just like, with kids, if you do all their homework for them, they aren't going to learn. So you have to work with the entrepreneurs and say, okay, here's all these questions that I'm asking you. Now we're going to put together a food safety plan, and here's your homework, right?
Yeah.
Step 1, you need to become PCQI certified. When you're done with that, come back to me. And I want your list of questions and what you learned and what you now consider to be the risks in your process. And then we can start talking about that.
Yeah.
You want this to be a two-way street, because you're helping them and you're educating them at the same time. And that's where these things all intersect. Is it doesn't matter how big your company is. These rules hold true through any company.
Absolutely. I agree.
And like Sanal said, making sure that they fill out the paperwork, because part of this, and this is what I would do with my small clients like this as well too, is like, hey, I'm not going to be here all the time. My job being a consultant for you is to make my role obsolete. I'm here to kind of help you, baby bird. And once we've done that, you need to fly on your own, which means when that state inspector comes in or FDA shows up, you need to be able to explain all this stuff yourself. I'm not going to be here. This is all on you.
Yes, that's true. And that does happen because they will ask, hey, can't you just be my PCQI, like on call and just be my consultant? And although maybe that's acceptable for some things, it's going to get sticky very, very quickly. And it's short-lived, maybe through your first, couple of months, to make sure your team is filling out paperwork and training you how to verify and all this. Even though you got your PCQI training, you kind of got to learn to get into the groove of checking and verifying paperwork every week. So all of that, but it's not sustaining. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. So if a client says, hey, can you help out with this PCQI, food safety stuff? If I do, it's only going to be at high level, right? It would be like, okay, I will do an annual check on your system. And ideally, what I would do, and I've done this before with clients, is it's like, okay, I've helped you develop these systems, done the education, you're doing a fantastic job maintaining all these things. And now it's getting to that next stage of, wow, this is really starting to grow. I'm thinking about getting my GFSI certification, right? That's the next extinction event. And with that, I don't want to audit them. I want to send somebody in like you or Joe Lano or really, really experienced, really personable auditors who can go in and do that gap assessment. And they want to jump right to certification. I'm like, no, here's what you need to do first, right? You've done amazing work. I want Allie to come in, fresh eyes, and do a gap assessment for you and see what you have and what you don't have. And that is always an extremely valuable process. So, okay, well, I understand why Bryan, showed you how to do these things, but you've kind of changed that all around. Walk me through what you're doing now. And it's like, yeah, you think that's better, but no, that's,
Yeah.
if I was here for an SQF audit to certify you, I would fail you. Hey, so let's fix some of these things. And a lot of times they don't understand the value in that.
Right. And relying on Bryan, like, well, Bryan always did that. Well, Bryan took care of that. Well, Bryan's not here today. So now what? And then that is usually the light bulb of, okay, this is what Bryan's been telling me. I need to learn this stuff when he's not here. In the event he's not here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you really want to dial the heat up with these guys, it's like, all right, I'm going to send Allie in and she's going to pretend she's FDA.
Yeah. Oh, I love doing that. So much fun.
And we'll really see how things are going. And that's kind of that next stage. And so part of this is, right, everything parallels in food safety, right? There's no, it's very interesting, isn't it? Right. We're talking specifically here today about small entrepreneurial companies, but everything we're talking about applies to every food company we're dealing with, right? If you're a large company and your mergers and acquisitions group is looking at buying a small company, right? So you're the successful mom and pop gluten-free bakery, and now all of a sudden you have the attention of Lala or some large bakery, right? And they want to buy you. Now you have to explain all this stuff to them, and the food safety people at Lala need to understand how you do things, right? So all of these things never go away. It doesn't matter how big you are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And even the big guys sometimes, need to come back to the basics and get rechecked.
Yeah. So a big part of this, right, is this really what you want to work out with them is kind of what I call like a 5-year plan. It's like, okay, well, let's sit down and where do you see this company going in 5 years? Who do you want to target? What type of products do you want to sell? Where do you see these things expanding? All of these fun things. And if they don't have a 5-year plan, that's a big warning sign too, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And as a lot of the 5-year plans I hear, well, I have 5 flavors now and I want to have 20 flavors. Okay, that is a big 5-year plan. Do you know what all that entails? Because now that means all these different ingredients as well. So even if they do have a 5-year plan, chances are it doesn't match what you're thinking it should for food safety and all the rest of it.
Right. And yeah, part of this too is helping them understand that success is a burden. So, okay, great. You're making an amazing kick-ass product and you're growing and you understand all these food safety things and you've got the certifications in place. And the grocer says, the buyer at Kroger says, I love it. I want this in 100 stores in 3 months. Oh, right. Extinction event. Now you're like, oh my God, right? I can't make this where I'm at. I need a co-man.
Mm-hmm. Co-manufacturers can get you in trouble.
Right. And now you've just crossed another Rubicon in that co-mans, that's their business. And they want you as a client. They want you doing things the way they do things, right? Their goal, if you're a co-manufacturer and that's your business, your goal is to fill that plant up. And what's in that plant? So now you've got a whole other level of education for this small business, because now essentially they're back to square one, aren't they?
Yes. And I just read. I don't want to get into co-mans and all that, but just ask questions.
Yeah, and this goes back to, and ideally, right? So this is kind of, you can see how these relationships, and that's kind of I started off this chat here today talking about pulling back the curtain, because then ideally what happens in those situations is like we were talking about earlier. It's like, okay, fly baby bird, right? So you help them. Now they should be coming back to the nest and saying, okay, Bryan, now I'm at this next level, help. Right. And now that next level of education starts. And that's kind of I think a good point for our chat here today as well, Allie, is that if you go bleh and dump all this stuff onto your client at once, that doesn't work either, right? You're just going to discourage them. And you have to, just like in everything else we do in food safety, things need to be introduced at the correct time and in small doses.
Yes. And that's why a lot of this stuff cannot be rushed. And we know what Kroger's asking for, but we also know what the capabilities are. And it's okay to tell them, I'm not ready. You never know what they could say. That's fine. Let us know when you're ready. It doesn't mean you're going to lose the business. You don't know. So just be honest with your journey and just know it may not happen overnight. It won't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. Well, and some retailers, like they love, the small startup, Trader Joe's and, Whole Foods, they like that local flavor with these new type of products. And a lot of times, to your point, Allie, it's a super good point, is be honest, right? Hey, we want you in our stores. Okay, well, I'm a small company. I'm just starting out. Can you guys help me with these things as I scale up? And a lot of times they can. And they're like, okay, well, great. I thank you for letting us know where you're at in your food safety journey. Here's how we help small entrepreneurial companies produce safe products, because it's to their benefit as well. But if you try to pretend like you're General Mills, right? No, don't do that. Be honest and work with them and say, yeah, I as I reach this next stage in my business and as we partner with you to develop these, I'm going to need some help. And what's cool is coming up here in January, a little teaser. I have a successful CEO of startup food companies coming on the show to talk about his journey. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what he has to say.
Oh, good. That will be exciting. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been trying to get CEOs like that on the show to chat, but a lot, they're CEOs, right? They're super busy. It's hard to get them on and commit. So fingers crossed that nothing changes on that side. So really, so we're at the 5-minute mark here already, Allie, is back to that 30,000 foot level and back to that conversation, right? Of should I or shouldn't I? And really it's also for them as well. So what would you like to leave our audience with here today?
If you are a small business that's looking to get certified, really is where this kind of started. Make sure you do your homework and make sure you reach out for help. It's a long journey and you can't do it alone, but there's people out there that can help you along the way. Okay. Mm-hmm. And just grow. That's what I hope for you.
Right. And if you're working for a larger food company, thank you for the Merry Christmas wishes, Larry. Very nice of you. And I did see your clock and flower comments earlier. So Merry Christmas to you as well and everyone else. Is take what we've talked about here today. Don't look at this and say, well, I'm not a small entrepreneurial company. This doesn't apply to me. No, it does. It does. If you're working in quality and you're evaluating, as we talked about earlier, suppliers, everything that we're talking about here today, you're just on the buyer side of that conversation now.
Yeah.
You need to be asking all these questions of them and approaching it in the same way.
Yes, it does work. Sometimes I forget about the big guy too, but it's true. You guys might be requiring somebody. They might send you somewhere like, hey, go check out this place and see what's going on. And there's always stuff going on behind the scenes that you can take a peek at, that all of this stuff is relevant to.
Yep. These things are all relative, except for the food safety, right? It doesn't matter how small you are, how big you are. You need to be taking all of these things into consideration. And it's hard, right? I have tremendous respect for these really gutsy people who are out there trying to make a go at this. And I'll help them in any way we can. But sometimes they need to understand that truth early. I worked with a really good project manager in a prior company. And in his previous role, he worked at Gillette and he was a project manager. And he had a really good saying. He's like, Bryan, it's not the projects we launch and create here at this company that are important. It's the ones that we identify and kill quickly that are the ones that matter. I was like, oh, that's really smart. And it's the same with these small entrepreneurs. They need to understand what they're getting into. Yeah, do we need high-risk products? Sure. But man, do you really want to go down that path? Do you really understand what you're getting into here?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they don't. I mean, you see every now and then these recalls. There was an ice cream company in Florida, right, that had a big listeria problem, small local place. And clearly the CEO, the entrepreneur who started up at this company didn't understand the risk, because even after these risks hit and it was shown that his ice cream had listeria in it, he refused to recall and he refused to do anything. And he went out of business. Good. Screw you. You shouldn't be in business. And he should have had that lesson early on, right? And so all of that work and everything that he did probably for decades, gone, because he didn't understand that early on and he didn't think that was necessary, right? That hurts us all.
Yeah, and know your product and know if other people that make your product, what's going on with them. So it goes back to recalls again. If you're making ice cream, you should know Listeria is an ice cream and there has been recalls for ice cream. And what are you doing in your facility to make sure it doesn't happen to you? So I agree. I'm glad.
Yeah.
They should be out of business if you're not going to follow the rules.
Yeah, exactly. So, wow, we're already out of time. Oh, fantastic chat. This was a fun one. So hopefully we're able to compare and contrast and show that food safety doesn't care how big your company is, and health is important, right? We don't, this is the same here, right? And this is why I love having experts like Allie here on the show, is no one knows everything, right? It's more important to know people that know what you need, and building that network and being here on a Friday before Christmas and growing your knowledge and thinking about things slightly differently. Good for you. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. It's a busy time of year, but as we know, food safety doesn't care that it's Christmas or New Year's or anything else. It's 24/7, 365. And thank you for being here, everyone, for that. And thank you, Allie, for everything that you do.
Thanks. And thanks for having me back this year. I hope to see you next year too.
Oh, absolutely. And everybody have a great Christmas. Next week is going to be a fun show. So Dr. Detweiler is going to be on, and we're going to look at the year in review. Darren's been very active here recently. And of course, he's a huge advocate for food safety. And I have a ton of respect for Darren, and I'm always happy when he's on. But in the meantime, guys, enjoy your weekend, get that last minute shopping done. And we'll be back here next Friday. Yeah, we're here next Friday at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll have that next food safety chat. But in the meantime, have a great weekend, and we'll see you then. Bye, everyone.